Hello, cats and kitties. It's Terry Lee here. And I'm sorry it's been a minute or two since I've seen you guys. Life. But I just wanted to say hello and to welcome you to another true crime video. And we're in black and white, so of course we're doing true crime. And this is about the Johnston Gang. Now, when I say gang, I don't mean like gang like Hell's Angels or gangs like the Crips or the Bloods. I mean a gang of robbers. And if that sounds to you sort of like the Wild West or the 1920s, then you're kind of right. It's kind of the way it is. So let me put on my old lady glasses because I have some notes. Bam. And we will talk about the Johnston Gang. The Johnston Gang was a gang of criminals in Lancaster and in Chester County. That is in southeastern Pennsylvania. The gang was active in the late 60s through 1978, and in 1978, basically the gang was ended. They were rounded up. Some of the key members were rounded up, and that was kind of the end of it. Now, this gang was led by Bruce Alfred Johnston. Bruce Johnston was born on March 27, 1939, to James and Louise Johnston in Gatorford, Pennsylvania. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Bruce and his brother James Jr. were raised by his grandmother and his great aunt, and he really didn't have a whole lot to do with his dad, Bruce didn't, until he was beginning to get involved in some illegal activities. So there wasn't the normal family dynamic there, and he grew up mostly without his father. Now, Bruce had two other brothers, Norman and David. I want you to remember Norman and David because we're going to hear from them again later. The gang operated mostly in Chester County, some in Lancaster County, but they also even crossed the lines into Maryland and Delaware, so they got around. They were mostly into theft, and they stole antiques, money, tractors, drugs, cigarettes. Just basically, if it wasn't nailed down, they would steal it. They became experts. Now, they were not your smash and grab burglars. No, they became pretty good at this. They became experts at picking locks. They became experts at blowing up safes and cracking safes. They became experts at even disabling security systems and burglar alarms. So they were actually pretty hardcore about this. They communicated by using walkie-talkies during a job. They monitored police scanners to know where the police were at any given time. They would even go so far as to phone in a phony complaint and say they were somewhere else in the county so the police would go to that location and not be near the location they were actually robbing. So, I mean, these guys were pretty smart and pretty successful. Norman, one of Bruce Johnston's brothers, actually said that he thought they were probably involved in somewhere around 150 robberies during the time of the gang. So that's pretty amazing to pull off 150 burglaries. All right, we're going to go through a brief timeline of their major crimes. Now, like I just said, Norman said that they had probably committed something like 150 burglaries, and we do not have the time, and I do not have the energy to go through 150 of them, and I don't even have those, I don't even know what 150 of them are. But there are some major ones that, let's say, garnered the attention of the local authorities. The first one is the August 1971 burglary of the Dutch Wonderland theme park. And this is a theme park in Pennsylvania. The gang broke into the gift shop there. They pried open the door with a crowbar, and they stole $33,000 worth of goods. Now that's 1971, 33,000. That would be upwards of 50,000 in today's money. So they got a pretty good haul. And it was the worst theft that the Dutch Wonderland theme park had ever had, and they got away with it. And basically just really took quite the haul in there. Another one of their big crime jobs that they did was and I'm not sure I'm pronouncing this right, Media Heights. It's Meadia, Media Heights Country Club in Lancaster County. The gang used, again, a crowbar to break into the club's pro shop, and they actually disabled the security system by drilling holes into the wall of the pro shop. This again tells you how good they are at this, because you can't just drill holes nilly-willy into walls and expect for the burglar alarm to not work. You have to know where to drill, and you have to know what you're doing. So they really were pretty good at this. They used dynamite, excuse me, to blow open the safe. So yeah, they weren't above blowing open a safe with dynamite. And they absconded with a bunch of golf equipment, which was never recovered, and about $15,000 worth of cash. So again, another pretty good haul for the Johnston Gang. In 1976, we had the tractor theft and jury tampering. So we've got Bruce Sr., who is the leader of the gang here. Bruce is on trial for tractor theft, and he gets in touch with Frank and Janet Gazzaro, and he gives them $83,000 in stolen furs, jewelry, and oddly enough, Oriental rugs if they will bribe a juror. Now, he also gives them 3 garden tractors, and Janet gives one of the garden tractors to a juror as a bribe, and it works. They actually get off free. It's Bruce and his 2 brothers, Norman and David, which again we'll hear more about. Norman and David figure pretty prominently into the gang. So yeah, they actually got off scot-free because of jury tampering. Now, in April and May of 1977, we have two more big things that they pull off. In April, the gang smuggled stolen cigarettes across state lines. Now, it did not say which state, Maryland, Delaware. We know they were active in both of those, so probably either one of those, Maryland or Delaware. The cigarettes were worth $21,900. Again, in today's money, that's going to be substantially more. In May of 1977, 3 of the gang members robbed the Longwood Gardens in Chester County, and they stole $28,000. Now, they were eventually caught for that one and served, 3 of the members served 2 to 4 year sentences in jail for that. And I do not have the specific three members that were caught for that. There were several members in the gang. It was indeed a family gang, so you had 4 family members, and then listed about 7 or 8 other members. Now we're getting to the meat of this story, the 1978 murders. As the gang was gaining more and more attention from the authorities, Bruce Johnston was getting more and more nervous, and he decided that he needed to stop his people from possibly talking to the police, because he was afraid that some of them would turn state's evidence if they got caught and tell about the gang. So, believe it or not, he even included his own son in the people that he was worried about talking to the cops. And we'll get back to that in a minute, but just suffice to say that even his own son was not safe from him. So the following gang members were assassinated in August. James Jimmy Johnston, age 18, was murdered August the 16th, 1978, and he was Bruce's half-brother. So see, family is not an issue for Bruce. He doesn't have a problem getting rid of family. The second one that was assassinated was Dwayne Lincoln. He was 17, also murdered August the 16th, 1978. The third one assassinated was Wayne Sampson, 20 years old, murdered August the 16th, 1978. James Sampson, 24 years old, was murdered August the 21st, 1978. And Robin Miller, just 15 years old, was murdered, August the 30th, 1978. And she was the girlfriend of little Bruce Jr., which is Bruce's son. Now, we're going to get back to that murder, but we're going to give you a little bit of background on Bruce Sr. and little Bruce, which is Bruce Johnston's son. Bruce Sr. eventually talks his son into forming his own gang, his own separate gang, which is led by little Bruce Jr. Little Bruce's gang starts committing burglaries much like the Johnston Gang has, but they're just not as good at it. They're not as put together, not as professional. And before too long, little Bruce is arrested and he is imprisoned in Oxford, Pennsylvania in early 1978. In the summer of little Bruce's imprisonment, Bruce Sr. agrees to take little Bruce's girlfriend, Robin Miller, to see little Bruce. But instead, he gets her drunk on whiskey, he takes her to a motel room, and he sexually assaults her. And she's 15 at this point. Bruce Sr. is 39, almost 40. So, yeah, he's just a great guy all around. Now, Robin writes a letter to little Bruce, and she tells him what happened to her. And little Bruce is furious. And that is the point in time when little Bruce decides that he is going to talk to the cops and tell them everything about the Johnston Gang. So here we are. This is at the point where Bruce decides that, something needs to be done with his gang. They're out of control. The Johnston Gang becomes known as the Kitty Gang. Now, no reason was really given for this in my notes, except that, the guys that I just read to you that were assassinated, that were murdered, were pretty young. We had a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 24-year-old, not to mention Robin, who was just 15. But she wasn't a gang member. She was just kind of caught in the crossfire. So they became known as the Kitty Gang. Little Bruce is now in protective custody with the police because he has informed on the Johnston Gang, and they think they probably need to make sure that he is safe. It's at this point that Bruce Sr. begins to suspect other members of talking to the cops, like I said earlier, and decided that they had to be silenced. So you already know who was murdered and when, but now I'm going to tell you the situation. 3 of the 4 murdered gang members were taken to a field off of Cosserts Road. The nickname is the Devil's Road in Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania. They were told to dig their own graves, and then they were shot and killed. So first let me tell you who was shot and killed there. Dwayne Lincoln, Wayne Sampson, and James Johnston were the ones who were killed on the Devil's Road in Chadds Ford. By the end of August, little Bruce is out of jail. And on August the 30th, little Bruce and his girlfriend are ambushed by little Bruce's uncles, David and Norman. Here are David and Norman again. Robin was shot in the face, and she died. But little Bruce was shot 9 times, 3 of them in the head, and still amazingly survived and was able to make it into his house to call the police. So, obviously, little Bruce is not happy about almost being assassinated, and obviously not happy about his girlfriend being killed. So he decides that he's going to go ahead and testify against Bruce Sr. at Bruce Sr.'s trial. So Bruce Sr. and his uncles are convicted of the murders of James Johnston, James Sampson, Wayne Sampson, Dwayne Lincoln, Robin Miller, and another guy by the name of Gary Crouch, as well as the attempted murder of little Bruce. Now, Bruce Sr. received 6 consecutive life sentences for this. David and Norman Johnston were convicted of killing James Johnston, Wayne Sampson, Dwayne Lincoln, Robin Miller, and the attempted murder of little Bruce. They were not actually convicted of the murder of Gary Crouch. I'm sorry. So they were just convicted of those, and they were given 4 life sentences, and this was in 1981. So Bruce and David and Norman are all in jail now for the murders of members of their own gang and the attempted murder of their son and nephew. It's amazing. Family actually just did not seem to have a whole lot of loyalty there. In 1999, Norman actually escaped from prison, and he was featured on America's Most Wanted, and he was captured 20 days later. And they asked him if it was worth it, and he said, no, not for 20 days. And this has always interested me when people escape prison, because they're almost always found pretty quickly, and then there's more added to their sentence because they escaped. So I guess just the need to be free is overwhelming, but it generally does not work very well for the escapee. Now, Bruce Sr. appealed his sentence. He appealed the consecutive life sentences, and that would be because in order for him to get parole, he would have to serve the minimum of each life sentence. So we're talking probably at least 25 years, 6 times before he could get parole. So no parole in sight for him, really. And so he appealed this several times to no avail. He never got any reduction of his sentence or any reduction of his charges whatsoever. He developed liver cancer and he died in 2002 at the age of 63. Now, so you're wondering, I'm sure, what happened to little Bruce? Well, unfortunately, little Bruce did not take an opportunity to be away from his family to get on the right track. He had several run-ins with the authorities, and he is currently serving 7 to 14 years in prison, or at least I think currently, that was the latest thing I could find, for transporting drugs. And it's sad because, you would hope that he could have done something else with his life, but when you think about it, it's the only life he knew. He grew up with the gang all around him. He had his own gang for a while. He went through the trauma of losing his girlfriend. He went through the trauma of knowing that his dad and his uncles tried to, murder him. Then, of course, his father is gone at that point after he's convicted, and Bruce is only 19 when Bruce Sr. is convicted. No, I'm sorry, I think he's 20 when he's convicted. So he's going throughout most of his life without his father, growing up in a life where all he knew was crime. So it's not terribly surprising that he did not walk the straight and narrow once he got older, but it is sad. So that is the Johnston Gang. They are infamous in Pennsylvania. A friend of mine is from Pennsylvania, and I asked her about them when I was researching this. This was actually a request by another person that I know from Pennsylvania. And so when I asked my good friend from Pennsylvania, do you know who this is? She said she did recognize them. She had heard about the robbery at the Dutch Wonderland theme park. She knew about Devil's Road, where the 3 members of the gang were killed. So this is a thing in Pennsylvania that people know about. Now, obviously, I'm not from Pennsylvania, but I found this to be an interesting story because we don't think of gangs like that really operating even as late as the 60s or 70s. We think of these as gangs like from the Wild West, these robber gangs, or from the 1920s, with I don't know, Elliot, no, not Elliot Ness, he was actually a cop. Who am I trying to say? Dillinger, John Dillinger, there we go. We think of gangs like that, or Mom Barker and her gang. We don't really think of gangs like that being in the 60s and 70s, or even now. So I thought you guys might find that interesting, and just thought, well, that's one it's not a serial killer per se, more like a mass murder. But I thought that might just be a little bit interesting for you guys to hear about. This is a little shorter than my usual videos, just mostly because this is very straightforward. A gang, and they commit robberies, and then they killed 4 of their own and 1 poor innocent girl who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then, of course, Big Bruce Sr. tried to kill his son using his brothers, his son's uncles. So there you go. All right, guys. Well, that was just a little video to tide you over until my next one, which will be an ASMR video. I have gotten some new stuff from Bath & Body. They were mostly blind buys, so I'll review them for you and do some ASMR, a little tapping, a little soft speaking for you. I hope that you guys are doing well. If I seem all over the place in this video, it's probably because I am a little bit all over the place. Haven't felt that great for the past few days. I'm feeling fine now, but, trying to get back into the swing of things and get back into the swing of making videos. So I hope you guys are well, and I hope you're staying safe and taking care of yourself. If you haven't voted today, go vote. I voted. So today is election day, so go out and make your voice heard. And I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.